No, gay people do not ruin homophobic people's friendships. But what happens when homophobic people's homophobia backfires on their friendships? You guessed it, they double down and blame gay people even more. Today's episode almost took a year to make because I kept seeing these videos pop up on my YouTube and I'd keep watching them and then get very confused what they were even talking about. So today, as the new internet CEO of Gayville, USA, who is now the ambassador to the right-wing internet, I figured I would take a shot at answering all of these Christian video essays about how gay people ruin friendships. So let's jump into today's video.
Do you remember when we had Frodo and Sam,
Not the Lord of the Rings going gay.
Maverick and Goose, Rick and Sam, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Tolkien and Lewis, Frog and Toad?
What happened to Toad and Frog?
What motivated me to talk about this was the online banter about the upcoming animated series Frog and Toad. Bert and Ernie from Sesame Street and Stephen Bucky and Captain America.
Oh my God, what happened to Bert and Ernie?
You know, because there's this big debate going on right now with like Luca, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Mike and Will.
I gotta add in there that I love the melodramatic piano music. I think I'm gonna do that on this episode.
Will Smith and Jazz, Harold and Arnold. There was this one SpongeBob episode that came out.
SpongeBob? Oh my God.
It's called Superbad.
Mr. Ratburn gets married to a guy named Patrick. Sheriff Blubbs, Deputy Derlin, Felony Carl, and Globby, Orca and Flicks, Abraham Lincoln.
I'm gay, and I like watching gay films. But I am not aware of how many shows out there are gay. These people have like the whole internet memorized over who's gay or not according to Twitter.
Think of how often people today joke about Frodo and Sam, Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson's. If Legolas loves Gimli, if Jonathan embraces David, if John Henry Newman chooses to be buried next to Ambrose St. John, Gershwin and Max Rosen, Henry Ford and Thomas Edison.
Okay, so now that everybody is gay everywhere, and that none of the gay people exist anywhere, I want to utilize my Catholic background to analyze all of these arguments. I used to be a super traditional Catholic, daily mass, daily rosary, all of that jazz, learning about how evil gay people are, and now I guess I sort of became one. But I want to use my Thomistic background to really look at these videos, and I think what we're addressing here is two different arguments.
Once queer theory took hold in the academy, aspiring intellectuals started going back through history and literature, insisting that what looked like deep friendship was really repressed desire, or could have been.
First, there's the, and history will call them, roommates controversy online, looking at historical figures that might have been gay. And then conservatives haven't realized that they are being rage-baited into it because they lose their minds as soon as somebody is gay and can't fathom the idea that a gay person might exist in history. So I think that's the first question.
Unlike in earlier times when everyone just assumed that upstanding men weren't shagging each other, now the burden of proving you're not gay lies on the men in the relationship.
And then the second argument appears to be, how can we have close male friendships if gay people exist? And people are lonely these days, but let's blame it on gay people seems to be kind of the second argument here. These people are saying that being gay is terrible, terrible, terrible. And then they get everybody to believe that being gay is terrible, terrible, terrible. And then it comes back around at boomerangs, and now they're getting the no homo accusations. Seems to be the second argument.
And today I want to talk about how LGBT ideology ruined the concept of friendship. But if sexual attraction is always a part of your identity, then you can't just be friends with each other for the same reason men and women can't just be friends. One reason that incest is wrong.
Okay, that's enough of that. I'm going to pause that right there. But anyways, on like a more serious note, the real victim of all of this Christian homophobia boomeranging back onto them is that gay people are the ones that are getting the brunt of A, losing friendships, and then B, getting blamed for homophobia backfiring on these people. Like Erica, who's in that past clip, I've talked with her before.
You're making this massive divorce between the psychological and the real.
I don't think she pulled up to Dr. Doofenshmirtz's Evil Catholic Incorporated, where she works, and just decided to scapegoat gay people. But I do think that with a lot of these video essays that we're going to look at, these people are super willing to scapegoat their friends and neighbors and children and relatives and people to make up for their own moral failures because homophobia is not good for society.
Hey, let me tell you a story real quick. So me and my best friend, Luke, were inseparable. People were like, are you guys gay? And we were like, no, pause. It's like, we're just best friends. And even like back then, our culture looked at same-sex affection and automatically thought same-sex attraction.
No gay affirming person actually thinks that. This is just a giant boomerang is what's happening.
If you're a guy and you really like hanging out with another guy and you really enjoy being in his company, people are like, hey, you kind of have a little bromance going on over there. No, we're not. This is a healthy masculine friendship.
So all these videos are homophobic people shooting themselves in the foot. And I do want to preface here that, like, making friends is a difficult thing. I remember in middle school, I had a really hard time making friends. One of the things is that I knew that I was gay, but wasn't sure if it was a safe environment to come out. And everybody deals with the hardships of making friends and navigating social media and so many things happening in this culture at large. But not everybody is willing to throw gay people under the bus, ostracize them further from society because of some amount of difficulty making friends in society. Like, I know I'm going to get the comment down below that's like, Cade, you don't get it, like, making friends as a guy is super hard, or like friendships, and the answer is like, yes, making friends is a difficult thing. And especially if you're a young man, like, look, growing up, all of my friends were guys. Like, I know what the male experience is like. And yeah, toxic masculinity and all these big buzzwords out there make things difficult. But I don't think that experiencing some amount of empathy can warrant just throwing other people under the bus and ostracizing them from society this whole time. In all of this very long intros, to say that today we sort of have like a 3-part video essay. And like, this is going to be long because it took me forever to break down exactly how this operates. But we're going to be going through conservatives rage baiting themselves. We're going to go through conservatives wanting to kick out gay people from society. And then we're going to talk about who the real victim in all of this is, and maybe how we can progress further as a society to actually being nice to each other. Like, who would have thought? Before we really jump into the meat and potatoes after all these flashy clips, if you want to support this work, consider donating on Patreon. $1 a month and up actually gets you access to my private Discord server. If you want to continue this conversation and make friends who are there actually to support you, that's the private community that I have. So let's jump into today's episode. Part 1, and history will call them roommates. And so let's start with this, and history will call them roommates online discourse, that conservatives are so blinded by their own hate that they literally cannot understand this argument or take a joke. The party of, oh, you know, woke people canceled me for being racist and I can't just like make jokes about anybody. Like, it's those people that say the left can't take a joke that literally cannot understand when they are being successfully rage baited by this controversy.
Do you remember when we had Frodo and Sam, Maverick and Goose, Rick and Sam, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Tolkien and Lewis, Frog and Toad, and then they just disappeared?
Notice how she uses the language of, like, disappeared. These characters are not going away, but in her mind, if these people are gay or these characters are alleged to be gay, they're gone, they're worthless, like whatever the case is. They didn't disappear. If you have eyes and basic empathy, these characters are still here. But if in order to like somebody and have a story told to your kids, they can't be gay, then yeah, they disappeared. But that's sort of your own opting out of the equation.
I'm not saying that people with same-sex attraction or sexual identity disorders ruin friendship. I'm talking about the vocal elements within the LGBT movement that want to turn any display of love between people of the same sex into a sexual relationship.
Okay, so what these conservatives see is that every historical friendship ever is getting turned gay by the woke mob online. And if you're not familiar with online discourse, there are a lot of people talking about how these roommates from history or these lifelong male partnerships or whatever it is might have been gay because queer people were erased from history. Like, here's an example reel showing that. And for those of you listening at home, there's a video of somebody that shows the text on screen, and history will call them roommates, followed by a bunch of photos of queer people throughout history that were couples and in love with these secret photos, is what's happening here. So, like, that's the movement. And I want to be clear here. It's not that the LGBT movement is seeing any male friendship or any close people throughout history and just assuming that they were gay because they were close, but rather that conservatives cannot let historical figures have been gay with very, very, very obvious signs. And so what these conservatives see are LGBT people calling couples gay with very obvious signs, but the conservative can't see these very obvious signs. And it's like, oh my gosh, you're saying that all close people in history were gay? That's so weird. But the thing is that we know that this happens because historically these couples weren't allowed to exist. I want to play a few clips from a documentary on Netflix. It's a personal favorite documentary of mine about this older lesbian couple who played ball with the League of Their Own type of movie. Like, these ladies played that game, and they've been together for forever as a lesbian couple, and people are just starting to figure out, and they're alive, and they can like actually confirm this. But I want to play a few clips.
We have not had any same-sex couples, but we do have family members that are.
If there was, would they be accepted? Because we are a couple.
How long have you guys been together?
65 and a half.
65 and a half years.
Like, this is one of the sweetest films on the platform. This couple has been together for 65 years. A lot of that being in secret.
You had to be very careful.
Those were the days where buyers that were suspected of being lesbian buyers were frequently raided. They could be arrested and thrown in jail.
I love my mother, but she would have disowned me.
Like, this is why people had to hide, because we see the one lady was like, my mom would have kicked me out. And we know that if they were a public couple, they would have gone to jail or lost their job or worse. Like, we do know that people in history have been queer and in relationships and hidden that.
I think love is love, and that's the most important thing.
What she means to me. She means everything.
Like, it's couples like this that I think if you can listen to their story and you can say they're just sinners or they need to repent, like, I don't know where your empathy has gone. Because this is a beautiful story and a prime example of like what this and they were just roommates narrative is.
And they've always been anti-Terry and anti-Pat. Didn't know they were gay till 3 years ago.
And part of this film is this older couple in their golden years retiring, moving into this retirement home, and finally telling some of these people in their life that they've been a beautiful couple this whole time. And everybody knew them as good coworkers, or just their two aunts, or just roommates who spent a lot of time with each other. Like, we know that this is a phenomena. And here's an example of a couple who actually gets married in the middle of this film for the first time. That, like, this narrative exists. There are people who were just roommates and leaving very obvious clues. And this isn't some, like, post hoc thing after their passing. This is us getting to see in this film a beautiful example of a love story that could have never been public when they first fell in love and were just roommates.
You were kind of breaking the rules back then.
Exactly.
You kind of broke the rules your whole life.
Yes, I have. That's why I'm happy. No regrets. I'd do it all over again.
This is a beautiful couple. They've been together 65 years. They were professionals in baseball together. They were just roommates throughout all of this time. And whatever you want to say about this, we know that they were hiding their lifelong and faithful love from the world because the world was not ready. And so there's so many examples of these couples throughout history that were more than just roommates. But conservatives, if this couple had passed away, would be weirded out by the idea of like maybe they were a couple. And the answer in this case is that they absolutely were. Well, the thing that always gets brought up in these conversations are Jonathan and David, which are two biblical characters, which many people see as in love. And like there's a whole debate there. But what I want you to see in all of these next clips is that conservatives are unwilling to even engage in the possibility of these very obvious signs potentially being gay. And I'm not even saying that 100% these characters were gay. All I'm saying is that you can see conservatives' unwillingness to even engage in this conversation. And like, here's a clip of a guy who tries to explain away the quote that like, my love for you is greater than the love for women away, in like this half an hour long lecture about how nothing means anything. Like, roll the clip.
Like LGBT revisionist theologians who say Jonathan and David had a gay relationship in the Old Testament.
Yawn. Like, this is so boring. Like I said, it doesn't actually matter if they were gay or not. Because if they were, cool. And if they weren't, cool. Like, I don't have stakes in this conversation. But conservatives have to explain away everything that gay love could not have existed historically, because then it would make these biblical characters untenable in their conservative homophobic worldview. Like, this is a creation of their own making. And so then when people go like, oh, you know, maybe these roommates, these people that wrote poems, or these Civil War lovers, like, they were straight the whole time, when there's like very obvious signs that they weren't, conservatives have to be like, no. So the conservatives are like, oh my gosh, right? These close male friends, the LGBT lobby is just sexualizing friendship. And the answer is like, no, the LGBT lobby doesn't have anything invested if some of these historical figures were gay. All we're saying is that at least some of these stories were gay, because we know that gay people have always existed. Where, like, whatever you want to say about LGBT identification rates in the past few decades, whatever you want to say about social contagions or whatever it is, we know that historically there's been a portion of the population that has been inclined to love of other consenting adults. And that has always existed. Like, I hate to break it to you, but like, that's been a real thing. And so we know that historically tens of thousands of couples and romance have been buried in history because society could not have written down these records.
The only way we can even possibly have heard about the story of David and Jonathan and their intense friendship is if it was already completely understood at the time by everybody that homosexuality and the behavior around it was completely prohibited and frowned upon. If the author of 2 Samuel even hinted at homosexual behavior, the whole book would have been thrown out of the canon.
Like, this guy is sort of making my point that we know gay couples existed throughout all of the world. But this guy has to go, well, if Jonathan and David were gay, like, it would have never actually made it into the Bible because the biblical authors don't like gay couples. And it's like, yeah, that's sort of the point and why we have to go off of all of these crazy clues. Is because this guy's admitting that if they were in fact gay or made it more obvious to conservatives, they would have been literally stoned to death in the Old Testament. And that we know in biblical times there would have been people who are naturally born with attractions to other men, that may have fallen in love as teenagers or even lived together as roommates, that have lived these beautiful lives together. Like the love that you have for your spouse if you're watching, we'd know that there were couples in ancient Israel when the Bible was being written that would have experienced that same thing. But they could have never shared it to their tribe. They could have never written it down. And that has been lost to all of history. And so that's what this movement's about. It's not about looking at friendship or closeness and assuming things were gay, but it's as the Bible prescribes. These lovers would have been literally killed with stones. Like, of course we're not going to write that down.
Think of Gershwin and Max Rosen, Henry Ford and Thomas Edison, David and Jonathan, Ignatius and Francis Xavier. None of these were sexual relationships. They were simply and profoundly male friendships that channeled incredible male energy into scientific, artistic, and spiritual breakthroughs. Friendship like that can only come to be and survive apart from identity politics.
These people are so blinded by their own hatred and their own disgust of people that they don't like that they can't admit that some of the geniuses throughout history might have been gay. Right, like these friendships that you just listed, I'm not saying they were gay, and no LGBT activist, however woke, is actually saying that. But she's making the counterclaim, which is that, like, none of these were gay. That's the discrepancy here, is that the other side says nobody could have been gay because we couldn't have scientific advancements if people were gay. And then we're saying, like, well, some of them might have been gay. And it's like, ew, no, that's disgusting. Let's throw wood chips at them on the playground. Like, this is just playground bullying. And for example, Alan Turing, who broke all of the Nazi codes during World War II and saved hundreds of thousands, if not millions of lives, and invented one of the first large computers, is somebody who we know historically was gay because he went to jail for it.
What's wrong with you?
I have something to tell you. I'm a homosexual.
This is a clip from an Imitation Game about his story, and, like, we can't dispute the actual legal cases around this. Like, this is real stuff. And I get that to the other side, gay people are sort of political pawn or something to talk about in, like, a political context or these big social movement. But, like, these are real lives. These are real stories of love. These are people's entire lives that are being completely dismissed.
This is serious. They could send you to jail.
Damn it. Well, the judge gave me a choice, either 2 years in prison or hormonal therapy.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Yes, that's right. Chemical castration to cure me of my homosexual predilections.
Like, have you no empathy in a story like this? In Alan's case, he was chemically castrated for being gay, despite having saved a lot of people in World War II, arguably saved a ton of lives. But because he loved other men consensually, society was not ready for his story, and he ended up taking his life over these treatments. And that's what makes excising these queer stories from history so difficult, is that whether it's in biblical times that we have no record of, or in medieval times in which people were hanged and quartered for being gay, or in these more recent times where people would have gone to jail for being gay, like this elderly couple from the earlier clips, or what they're trying to do by taking books off of shelves of authentic history. If you erase queer history, we're not going to have good records of it, and so we're going to have to make some guesses here. But just because you burned all of the books, and just because you threw everyone in jail that you didn't like, doesn't mean that these stories didn't happen. And because you took away our history, pardon us if we speculate a little bit over what these roommates in history might have been. Because those are our stories that you have taken away. And so, of course, we're going to investigate some of these stories that you have tried to burn and erase from all of history. These beautiful lives of love that you have thrown in jail and killed people for. So, pardon me if we do a little bit of investigating beyond your own myopic view of history. Whatever you think about homosexuality, these people's loves are their entire lives. They've worked overtime, they have raised families, they have gone through persecution together, they have sacrificed in times of sickness, and they have rejoiced in times of health. And these are the stories that you're trying to rip from us? No, you don't get to erase our history, our lives, our love because you're uncomfortable with it, and then get uncomfortable when we start asking questions about the history that you took away from us. That's not how any of this actually works. And this is all the homophobia speaking. If you weren't uncomfortable with somebody being gay, you wouldn't be uncomfortable by some random account on Twitter speculating if somebody is gay because it's no longer an insult. Right? All this ickiness around friendship and sexuality and all of these things, all of this only works if you are uncomfortable with the idea of some of these figures being gay. You can still love the math, you can still love the music, you can still love all of these historical figures even if they were gay. All of this only works if you have to defend the fact that the people that you like must not have been gay, because being gay in your world is wrong, even if this was somebody's entire world.
We need to put the stigma back on adultery and fornication, and squarely back on buggery, sodomy, and mutual masturbation. This stigma, applied with compassion to everyone, including those who experience the personal challenge of same-sex attraction, makes room for powerful and fulfilling male friendships.
Side note, these are the people that always bring up sex acts in polite company. Like, I run a gay YouTube channel, and I do not talk about sex acts in the way that this lady does on her YouTube channel all the time. Or the other guy in his video essays somehow manages to make every video about trans people in locker rooms and their genitalia. Like, this all sort of reminds me of that one grandma in church who in the middle of a sermon just says this.
A man look at another man's booty and want to jump in there. It's nasty. It's nasty. Glory, it's nasty.
Like, Grandma, what? Like, Grandma, you're the one thinking about gay sex in church. Gay people aren't thinking about gay sex in church. It's the straight people worried about the gay people because they're so disgusted with the gay people that are then bringing up gay sex in church. Like, we're not doing that, buddy. Like, this is all a self-tell. All of this disgust and fear around gay people, all of this disgust and fear around historical figures, around love, around these beautiful lives, says a lot more about homophobia than it does the LGBT lobby. And I don't know who's telling them all of this. And all of these arguments that they're talking about historical figures and everybody wanting to make them gay. Nobody in the LGBT lobby is making the arguments that they're trying to say that the LGBT lobby is saying. It's just them shooting themselves in the foot because of their brains. They cannot handle the idea of these characters being gay. That's all that's happening here. And so let's move into the next section. Part 2. Keep the socks on. And so as Erica pointed out in the previous segment about us needing to stigmatize being gay again, in this second section we're going to see exactly how stigmatizing being gay is actually the thing that are ruining these homophobic people's friendships because they go on witch hunts for gay people.
It just seems like the question on everybody's mind right now is, can people have same-sex affection and not have same-sex attraction? Can you be bros and like hug each other and talk about your feelings and people not get weird about it?
Bro LGBT people are not asking that question. Like, the only people asking that question are people that don't like gay people. Trust me, I am confident in my own sexuality, and all of my straight friends that are supportive of gay people aren't asking these questions. It is just anti-gay conservative Christians that are then accusing each other of being gay because being gay is wrong, right? Like none of this makes logical sense that the LGBT lobby is the one ruining friendships. Because we're the ones that saying being gay is okay, regardless if you're platonic or romantic or like whatever it is. We're okay with it. It's the people that are uncomfortable with the one side of the equation that are actually running into their own problem here. This whole framework relies on gay people being bad people, or being gay being bad. And then you can't care about people in the wrong ways.
So I did a lot of research to see when all this all started. And as I was looking at different researches and stuff, like I was like trying to figure out like how can I prove that it hasn't always been this way.
So this is just sort of like bad science, right? When has it not been this way? And like the answer to these people is not what they expect because it's a sort of trap of their own making.
Back in the 90s, more than half of men had at least 6 close friends they could count on. Now, that number's been cut in half. And even among men who do have friends, only 21% say they get emotional support from them, and only 30% say they share their personal problems with their friends.
Okay, yes, making friends is a difficult thing, and people are lonely. Who's the one ruining that?
There are so very many factors. Lack of third spaces, death of all male clubs, smartphones and social media leading to isolation and loneliness in every facet of society. But one reason sticks out as the root cause.
Right, could it be my generation spending too much time online? Could it be the lack of these third spaces? Could it be a lack of community? Could it be a lack of time because people are being overworked? Could it be career pressure from all of these things on top of us? Could it be any of these other economic or social factors? Could it be? Or does Erica have a more sinister view in mind to scapegoat random people not involved in this conversation?
The truth is more unsettling.
Oh no, cue the ominous music.
Male friendship has been sexualized. Male friendship is being choked out by a culture that sees everything through the lens of sex.
That is the thing that is supposed to be ruining all male friendships? Gay people? What is happening?
Before the late 20th century, most societies thought of homosexuality not so much as an identity, but as an action, specifically the acts of sodomy and masturbation.
Once again, why the fuck do these people bring up so much about sex? Well, like I said, I run a gay YouTube channel. Okay, and I do not talk about this much detail about sex acts as this conservative Catholic YouTube channel does. Like, what is happening here? Like, these are the people who look up on their own time the details about trans surgery and then tell their 4th graders about how evil trans people are by showing them photos of trans surgeries, or reducing gay people to only, like, the sex acts and the pornography that they've looked up in their own time on their own laptops, and, like, looked up all of this stuff to, like, own the libs.
I'm here in the capacity as the chairman of the National Task Force Against Homosexuality in Uganda.
The pastor began a presentation that grew increasingly inflammatory and graphic.
I've taken time to do a little research. One of the things they do is called where a man's is leaked like this. So I've done research. This is what they do. Number one, you can see a man here having the other person.
I'm sorry, researching gay sex acts and trans surgeries to tell like your 4th graders about in your free time is not owning the libs. Like, these are the people who bring up prurient details about sex acts. Like, gay people don't do that.
A man might have engaged in homosexual acts, but he wasn't necessarily considered a gay person. It was something he did, not always something he was.
Whose husband wrote this into the script? What?
But if sexual attraction is always a part of your identity, then you can't just be friends with each other for the same reason men and women can't just be friends. There's always a sexual tension that prevents someone from being vulnerable and honest with the other person.
Brother, what? Like, this is the point of the videos when I get so confused who they're talking about. As a gay person, I don't make this argument. As an LGBT lobby, we don't make this argument. Like, who is making this argument? It's conservatives getting stuck in their own logic that, like, the only way you can be friends with somebody of the opposite sex if you're straight is for sexual reasons. And then they got to apply that to gay people because gay people are icky and weird and just want to have sex with them all the time. And so, like, come up with these statements. And then, ironically, it's them being afraid of platonic relationships with people who experience same-sex attraction because they're the ones making things weird. Like, this is all just a giant loop that's feeding back to them, not gay people.
If you never had a safe space to be honest with a person and not worry about whether they want to have sex with you, you'd go insane.
Like, are we back on the playground in the 1990s bringing up these arguments, which was like, ew, gay people are weird, they want to have sex with me all the time, which is just not the case. Like, where are we at talking points when this is still how we're talking about friendships? Like, you're the one making this tough. In a secular public school, I had a lot of gay friends. I have a lot of friends of a lot of different sexual orientations. Like, I can have friends with people regardless of their sexual orientation. I know a lot of people with a lot of different orientations that they're mapping on there, and we can be just friends. I have a lot of friends of different religious persuasion, and I have a lot of secular friends who are straight that have a lot of gay friends. And, like, This does not enter the equation unless you are weirded out by it because you don't like gay people. This is not gay people ruining your friendships. This is you shooting yourself in the foot over this stuff.
But LGBT ideology only works if sex is not for uniting men and women as a one-flesh union in a way so that it's distorted or perverted if it's sought outside that context.
So this is the point where I get even more confused about who they're talking about, because this teleological language and all this like insider Catholic speak like only applies in their circles, and then they have to apply all of this stuff into the real world and it doesn't line up, so then they have to manufacture outrage against themselves because of all of this internal speak. Like the way that this guy is speaking is not how the real world works outside of Catholicville. This is only weird if you make it weird.
And now same-sex friendships are turning into this hardened, like one-sided acquaintance that's afraid to be vulnerable. Now there's a stereotype that girl best friends can only talk about guys and shopping, and guy best friends can only talk about sports and girls. Our culture is pressuring us into believing that people can't be deeply loving towards each other without being homosexual.
And once again, I do want to be gentle with where this is coming from, which is like we all want connection. We all want friends. We all want to not be alone. And yeah, there are many shallow friendships that are out there. But as he's talking about people that are starting to like buck the gender norm, that only has weight if you say that you can't buck the gender norms. And then this idea of like, well, we don't want to get close because then like, what if somebody calls us gay because like being gay is bad? Like this is just back to middle school bullying on the playground. Like this is an internal critique of Christian homophobia that's doing all of these bad things. Because this is not how it works in the real world. And here's a Catholic speaker to admit that it's actually other Catholics that are making people's lives hell for this accusation of being gay.
Because I'll tell you, I grew up in an all-boys high school, and at the time, it was an extremely homophobic environment. We were all so insecure. You're gay. No, you're gay. No, you're gay. You know what we were being? There's actually a theological word for it. It comes from the Greek idiotes, and in English, it's idiot, okay? That's what we were being. And so as a result of this, I need to ask your forgiveness. And I've outgrown that garbage, but unfortunately some people haven't.
Notice how in this story it wasn't the pro-LGBT radical feminist in this Catholic high school who were the ones bullying other people and calling them gay as an insult. It was other straight Catholic homophobes talking to other straight Catholic homophobes and calling their friendships gay. That's the root cause of all of this. Like, if you make gay a slur and then you yell it at other people, that doesn't mean that gay people are responsible for the slur. It's the straight people that use gay as a pejorative to put down others that are putting down others, not the gay people who are also getting bullied. This is why homophobia is antisocial at its core, because you can't just have male friendships. When you say being gay is wrong, and being too close to somebody else could be gay, so therefore it could be wrong, all of this works so much better if we can accept people for who they are. And then being called gay is not an insult, and the bullying stops, and people just have friendships. And so if we get rid of homophobia, people can just have friendships, and none of these accusations work.
And I believe this is Satan's plan. I would argue that without deep friendships, you will die, emotionally, socially, and spiritually.
I fully agree. Like, we need good friends. And who is getting in the way of straight Christian homophobes having good friendships? Straight Christian homophobes. It's not the LGBT lobby that's doing any of this. And like, on a more serious note, I want to tell a little bit of a personal story on this. For context, I went to a super conservative Catholic college where everybody said that homosexuality was wrong, everybody was supposedly straight, yada, yada, yada. And I got to interview one of my straight conservative Catholic friends about what the experience was of me dropping out of college, eventually coming out. And so here's that interview clip where we're talking about my own coming out. And this is all for one of my upcoming podcasts, so actually, like, go listen to my podcast. But, like, here's the clip.
There's also been, if you don't mind my telling, there's also been plenty of gossip that's gone around, like about Cade, like at school. Yeah. Quite frankly, I actually think probably quite a few rumors went around about me being gay as well. But there still is like a prevailing narrative.
So what he said is that when I came out, a bunch of people called him gay because him and I were close friends. Like, it's the homophobia that's starting those rumors and saying that's a bad thing. I've been asked by 0 of my LGBT friends if my friend and I are gay, because that's not an insult. That's not something that gay people think about. All of the homophobia and the gay accusations of my straight friend and I are from one side of the aisle, and nobody from the other side of the aisle has ever said anything about my straight friend and I's relationship. Like, this is not how the real world works. You guys are stuck in your own logic maze. You guys are stuck in your own hell for homophobia over this shit. This is not how LGBT people work in the real world. This is like a Monty Python level witch hunt.
Not a witch.
But you are dressed as one.
They dressed me up like this.
That's what's happening here. And so actually I made a meme diagram to put on top of the last clip from this section.
I've had to repent of this because I've had guy friends in my life who are a little more affectionate towards me, and because of the toxic masculinity side of things that I subscribe to, I've become a person that's like, no, don't hug me, like, let's just dap it up, you know, or let's just, you know, shake hands. Like, I've become that type of guy.
So that's what's happening here. They're on their bike, and they have a stick, and they label the stick being gay as bad. And then they stick the stick into their spokes, and they're like, oh my gosh, gay people. It's like, no, this only works because you don't like gay people. We have nothing to do with this equation.
Warm embraces between close friends have become bro grabs, and both parties are sure not to remain too close too long in said bro grab, their eyes darting about to make sure no one is watching and judging, and don't even think about bringing the word love to the table.
Nobody in the real world actually talks like this. Like, as somebody who's been in straight, male, conservative Catholic culture, that's how these people talk. Once you leave homophobia behind, nobody's actually worried if you giving your straight friend a hug is this, like, secret, coded thing, because these accusations have no weight, and so they're never leveled, and nobody thinks that way, because they can just have normal friendships without being weird and thinking about who wants to sleep with who. You can just have friendships when you leave homophobia behind. Like, she's the one this whole video that's trying to say that, like, gay people are icky and weird and we need to stigmatize them. Like, her talking about this is just her own doing. And all these videos have to end with still condemning gay people at the end because they can't just say being gay is okay. And so at the very end, you actually get to see how this stuff perpetuates and, like, roll the clip.
Same-sex affection does not equal same-sex attraction. Again, don't get me wrong. If people are acting weird, you know, pause. You know what I'm saying? But, like...
Anyway, so that's that section. Let's move into part 3, the real victim. Do you want to know who the real victim of all of this stuff is? Do you want to know who straight Catholics never talk about in these equations? They will talk about their failing straight friendships, and they will talk about the LGBT woke lobby out there that's funded by Satan or whatever. Do you know who they're missing in this equation? That there's a lot of Catholics who experience same-sex attraction and don't act on it that are trying to figure out if they have a place in the church. They want to follow the Catholic Church's teachings, and Catholics make this stuff really, really weird and, like, push all of the gay people out of their church because of this, like, internal straight critique.
Remember, they say that they're committed to chastity, so presumably they aren't engaging in sexual immorality. Various side B writers have rejected the idea that homosexual temptation is uniquely disordered.
Hey, Paul, the people that you were talking about are people in the pews. They might be siblings or kids or your pastor even, or the people that are helping out at the church that experience same-sex attraction, that are being condemned if they were to ever act on it. And they are silent, but they are listening. So when we talk about, like, oh my gosh, these people don't think that their attractions are intrinsically disordered, that's so weird. Do you know who's listening? It's not like the woke internet that's just clipping this stuff. It's people in your actual life that are listening to see if you're somebody that they can come out to and live a holy life next to.
In which he speculated that his homosexual proclivity was not even a result of the fall.
If gay people getting called evil is terrible, and you can't ever have friendships with people because of their sexual attractions and what they do in their sex life, which, like, all these conservatives are worried about people's sex lives in a way that the LGBT lobby doesn't. But all this sort of sets up this false dichotomy with my own experience of being celibate in the Catholic Church for years, knowing that I was gay, but never acting on it, never identifying with it. And the whole time I was trying to figure out, how do I have friends? Because if we have this narrative that, like, if I'm attracted to men, then me being friends with other men is inherently some sort of, like, cause for sin or scandal or whatever it is, okay, then I can't have close male friends. But also you're told, like, if you finally have male friends, then, like, you'll stop being gay, which is like a whole other conversion therapy narrative. But on the other hand, if at the time I wanted to have friends with females, but I wasn't out publicly, then that would have been scandal, because as this guy talks about, men and women can't just be friends. So there's nothing that I could have done at that time, right? Because you can't win. If you can't be friends with men because it's playing with fire, and you can't be friends with women because that's scandalous, then you're stuck. And I remember after I came out, somebody reached out to me and they're like, how come you didn't come out to me earlier when you were still Catholic? And it's like, because I listened to everything that you had to say about gay people when I was in the room. When you were talking about the people out there, when you're talking about the disgusting people in culture, or the people that are broken that experience these attractions. I was listening that whole time, and that's exactly why I did not come out to you. So through all of these conversations, I just want you, even if you think being gay is wrong, to remember that there are people in your life, that there are people in the very room listening to this video with you, or when you talk about these things at the bus, or in the pews, or at youth group, There are people in the room listening to you that you are friends with, trying to figure out if you're somebody that they can come out to. That's what's happening here.
But if sexual attraction is always a part of your identity, then you can't just be friends with each other for the same reason men and women can't just be friends. There's always a sexual tension that prevents someone from being vulnerable and honest with the other person.
Like, whatever you want to say about straight friendships and how hard they might be to make, they are even harder when you have people putting this rhetoric out there that people who are attracted to men are disgusting or broken or fallen and all this language. And that these people can never be friends with other people like that because then they were just going to, like, have sex or whatever. And then they also can't have friends with the other side because then that would be a scandal because men and women can't just be friends. And so these straight people talking about being victims of their own problems in a roundabout way. People that I actually care about are the people that these people are harming that they don't even know that they're harming because they don't have basic empathy when they're talking about these friendships.
If you never had a safe space to be honest with a person and not worry about whether they want to have sex with you, you'd go insane. Seems like playing with fire and a huge source of temptation.
See, it's this language that makes this so hard for people trying to be holy in your own church. That this guy goes into podcasts, talks all about how, don't be gay, don't act on it, whatever it is. It's this rhetoric that he's putting out there that makes it so difficult for people that are going to his church, that want to believe the things that he's saying. He's the one making it hard on them. He's the one both shooting himself in the foot and in lacking the basic foresight that he's also shooting other people and destroying their lives in the process by putting this rhetoric out there. And here's another example of when LGBT topics and homosexuality and the gay people out there just become political pawns instead of people's real lives. And that's how you get clips like this out there that have absolutely no foresight about how this could ever affect anybody besides the person who just wants clicks for doing a video like this.
I am homophobic and extremely proud of it. I hate homosexuality. Obviously not the people that fall victim to that sin, but homosexuality as a whole is evil, and the Bible tells us to hate evil. Homosexuality is a sin. Stop having sex with dudes.
These people don't realize that there are people in their pews that want to believe what they are saying about homosexuality, but deal with these attractions themselves and are trying to figure out and listen to their friends. Could I ever come out and actually have real friends who know who I actually am? Regardless of what you think about the sin. Anyways, this creator got his video taken down for hate, and here's what he has to say afterwards.
Earlier today, I posted a video where I was in open opposition to a modern-day practice that's often represented by a rainbow flag. I made sure to clarify that I do not have anything against the people who are falling into this sin, rather that I am against the sin itself. However, it was flagged for hateful behavior.
I don't know too much about this creator's intentions, but statistically speaking, there is one of his friends that is sitting at the pew with him on Sunday that might be going to a youth group event with him, that is also following his content, and who is going, is this somebody that I could ever come out to and say that I experience same-sex attraction, and will this creator accept me as a friend? And when people hear content like this on the internet that lacks basic empathy around especially emotional topics, that's why people aren't coming out to you. And so the first time that you hear that somebody's gay is by the time that they've left the church. And so all this language around gay people being intrinsically ordered and disgusting, like all of these things, just makes the homophobe's job harder. Like, I spent years as a very, very devout Catholic, daily mass, daily rosary, praying all the time, leading youth group events, discerning the priesthood. And throughout all this time, I wasn't acting on it, I wasn't identifying with it, I wasn't going to pride parades in secret. I was living in line with church teaching. And for years on end, I was trying to figure out which of my friends would stick by me if somehow this ever came out about me. And for years, it was reading between the lines from friends who made content like this on the internet, friends who repeated talking points that we've seen earlier in this video, that I was trying to figure out what would they say. So regardless of what you think about my opinions on homosexuality or what people do and their quote-unquote lifestyles, recognize that there are people in your life who are listening to every single word that you have to say and trying to figure out if you are going to reflect the love of Jesus that you try to prop up and claim that you do, or if you're a hypocrite and somebody who truly has hate in their heart. That's what people are listening to, and that is a grave responsibility. And so what surprised me most about leaving behind Catholicism, leaving behind homophobic culture, leaving behind all of this stuff and building a new life, is that nobody cares if you're gay. I have so many close straight friends, and we don't talk about my sexuality, that my sexuality is not a part of the equation, that we're just friends. I have so many straight male friendships that know that I'm gay, and it does not matter to them. That they do not think in these weird ways like you've seen in all this video where that all these Catholic homophobic creators, all they can think about is sex and attractions and sin and and how broken I am and like all of these things that are out there. The average person does not talk about those talking points. I run with people, I do business with people, I go out to dinner with people, I play sports with people, and sexuality does not matter because they're not weirded out by things. That this social isolation that homophobic Catholics talk about is a creation of their own making. And like I said, making friends is tough. But if you're not in a belief system that castigates people for being gay, that slurs are made up out of these church documents to lob at other people, that when you can have vulnerability, and that when you can have honesty, and that when you can care for people without labels, that these juvenile accusations do not work. That you can build friends who you are vulnerable with because you don't have these religious, hateful people involved in your life. That's the crazy thing that's happening here. That making friendships is difficult, and hate makes that so much harder. And that's why making this video took so long to do, because I kept seeing these reels pop up and these video essays that I've like pulled clips from, and I kept getting so confused listening to these videos. Because I'm like, who is saying that? And like, I'm somebody who's terminally online. Look, like I have a very right-wing feed, and I have a very left-wing feed for work, and so I get to see both sides of this equation. And what I've seen is that these ideas in these clips do not exist in the real world. That this is a pure manufacture of these homophobic people because they have to defend their homophobia. That actually homophobia is an antisocial behavior. That actually homophobia ruins straight people's lives. That even if you don't have empathy for gay people or still don't like gay marriage or like whatever it is out there, that like homophobia ruins straight relationships because of all of these accusations. None of these accusations are real or out there. These are manufactured things because these people cannot bear having friends without labels. These people cannot bear caring about people without putting some old church document ahead of actually loving people. And so actually, in a funny way, I do want to end this video essay with a clip from one of these homophobic Catholics who sort of recognize this and making a plea that we can all just be friends. And I've done other reactions about this guy, but if you're not going to listen to some on the internet like me talk about this, at least listen to your own people.
And so we need your friendship in our life. And I hope you'll realize that you could use ours as well. And the church is your home. You're called to communion, and let's do this thing together. No more of this they and us, we and them. All it is us. The family of God with all our different crosses, stumbling together through life, trusting in the Father who has a plan for each one of us.
And so that's the video. I always like to end my videos by saying things do get better. That I recognize that you might be in this environment where people are repeating all these talking points, so you don't know if you can make friends or like whatever it is. I went from incredibly religious in my whole life involved in it, and now having deconstructed and completely rebuilt my life and loving my life, I do want to say that things do get better. And so if you want to join an awesome community of people also thinking through these issues, I'd encourage you to join my Patreon for $1 a month to make this work possible. You'll get access to my private community of people thinking through this issue from both sides, moving all different directions. I have a great community of support if you'd like to join. If not, that is totally fine. Consider liking or sharing this video around, or listening to the audio-only version of this podcast. Just look up Intrinsically Ordered, or following me, Gay Extract, on all social media platforms. I'll see you guys in the next video.